Welcome to the AP cast with Phil and Alex, Season 2, Episode 1, the QB debate no one is having. What up? What's going on, Alex? How you doing?
Right, Phil, I am doing great. Football season starts today, preseason. Unfortunately, no Raiders football, but preseason football is here. It's amazing, man. How are you doing?
We'll get Raiders football next week.
Hell yeah.
I am ecstatic. I'm over the moon. I've waited a long time for football. I love football. And it's going to be an exciting season. It's going to be a long one, but it's going to be an exciting season nonetheless, filled with plenty of ups and downs and a lot of overreactions and hot takes.
Yep, for sure. And I think we got one of them today that people are going to think is an overreaction and a hot take. I'm not so sure it is, man. I'm not so sure it is.
And that remains to be seen. But it's early in training camp. We're 6 practices in. They're off today, and so we shall see. But the issue on the table today is: should Anthony Brown be getting more looks than he is? Does he have a real opportunity to start come week 1?
Oh, we're just hopping right into it today, huh? We are just starting off the new AP season, just going right in.
That's right.
If you're asking me, yes. All right. This is not even, if there's any team in the league that Anthony Brown would have a chance on regardless, it would be the Raiders, being that it's Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. I know there are some fans that like to think these guys are like, top 20, maybe top 15 quarterbacks. Zero chance. None of these guys are top 20 quarterbacks. I would argue that I don't like to bash the team. I like to be honest, though. I would argue that none of these guys are top 32 quarterbacks in the league. Now, Aiden O'Connell was only a rookie last year, so that's not to say he can't eventually be one. It's not to say he can't be one this year. But from what we know about these two up to this point in time, and training camp is not making them soar up the rankings by any means. I mean, they are struggling. Defense is beating them day in and day out since minicamp. Minicamp, training camp without the pads, training camp with the pads. Defense is beating their ass. So up to this point, yeah, Anthony Brown can walk in. And for what it's worth, it feels like he's on that path right now.
So I'll play devil's advocate. We are roughly 2 padded practices in. And by all accounts from those who have been there at training camp, they said that the last padded practice was the Raiders' best day on offense. Install is going, and they're installing a new offense with a new offensive coordinator with a plan that nobody's familiar with, aside from obviously the off-season OTAs. But let's be real. They didn't get their playbooks until the last day of minicamp.
Yeah.
So they've had their playbooks for all of a month, but have had maybe 6 practices to put it together, whereas the defense is now going on their year 3 of continuity.
Yeah, no, for sure. You may, it's definitely an overreaction to say that, in 2 padded practices where we are right now, and minicamp is kind of just fuck around and freestyle a bit, just it's everybody getting together again, and then through training camp with no pads, that Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew are just stuck in the mud, which as of right now, that is the case. But absolutely, it's an overreaction to say because that's the case right now, it's going to remain that case. Absolutely.
Now, what I will say, didn't Gardner Minshew make the Pro Bowl last year?
I have no idea. I know he
did.
I don't know if he did, but I'm going to say that if he did, I am very positive that it was as an alternative's alternative. And Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl 2 seasons ago. So that's in today's day and age, if you make the Pro Bowl as a Pro Bowl starter or originally on the roster, cool, no demerit there. Of course, it means a little less than All Pro. A lot of it's fan voting, but still, most of the time, the Pro Bowlers are at a Pro Bowl level. When we start digging into the alternates, I mean, it's just they need spots.
Because they need spots. They need bodies.
No, exactly.
And none of your Pro Bowl quarterbacks are going because they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And sadly, it has gotten to that point. There's no mistake in that. Your premium players are not playing in the Pro Bowl because they have playoffs to win. At one point, I believe I heard the Chiefs saying something like, go into the Pro Bowl instead of the Super Bowl where they were headed.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's kind of
go ahead.
I was gonna say it's kind of a shame because the Pro Bowl is always kind of like a special. It's just all the best players in the world, and as a fan, like it doesn't mean that because it's just a meaningless game, but it's cool to see all the best come together. But yeah, it's happening less and less.
I think we talk about the Pro Bowl, I think, and we're getting sidetracked, so I'll bring it back after this. But I think the best part of that they've done with the Pro Bowl is bringing back the skills challenge. I think that is worth far more than the game itself. So maybe the whole Pro Bowl week where they do that type of stuff, they get together and they do that's a lot better than the flag football, 2-hand touch, nobody tackle, exorbitant amounts of offense because nobody's playing defense. It won't let the defense blitz. It's gotten to be weird. Straight up.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right on that. But what do we got?
Yeah, it's what we got. It ain't the NBA All-Star game, that's for sure. But so Anthony Brown. So as we've said what it is. No, and we didn't really say that much about what it is. In his limited reps, he's gone out and he's made the most of his opportunities, which is commendable. Said we know that he's the best athlete in the quarterback room. He also has the strongest arm in the quarterback room. I believe he's got the best deep arm. We know that the RPO portion of the offense is something that is within his wheelhouse to run. He broke off a 70-yard run to score against the second team defense day before yesterday, I believe is what Logan said. And throughout everything, a lot of people have been left in awe with what he's done with his arm. And I know that the focus is on Minshew and Aiden O'Connell because obviously that's who the quarterback competition was supposed to be with. You paid Minshew, and you gave the job to O'Connell at the end of last season. So trying for him to try to get in there and work his way in, I mean, it's at this point we should say that it's probably a good positive thing that he's still above Carter Bradley on the depth chart.
Yeah. I mean, Carter Bradley had no chance in hell.
I don't know what Gus got on him, but they certainly did Gus a solid by drafting his son.
No, exactly.
Because that was I actually think Carter Bradley might not be as good as Chase Garbers was, but that's just me.
No, for sure. But yeah, going back to Anthony Brown, man, as I said at the start of the show, a lot of people are gonna think this is an overreaction. I was talking about him right now. I don't think it is. I really don't. It's not just that Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew have struggled since minicamp, training camp without the pads, training camp with the pads. Yesterday was their best day. Their day wasn't that great yesterday. It's that Anthony Brown has been exceptional in minicamp. He was one of the best players in minicamp. He was exceptional in the days without pads in training camp. He was exceptional day one. Like you said, Levi Edwards noted he had the best play of the day, the entire day. Day one with pads, 70-yard run. And he's all the things you talked about, Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, they're still getting used to the playbook. Yeah, so is Anthony Brown. It's not affecting him. And anything you want to say, he's playing against the twos, he's playing against the threes, and defense, he's running with the twos and threes. The offensive line, that 70-yard run he broke out, who's blocking for him? Guys struggling to make the roster, just as the guys who are defending. It doesn't matter. It's who's catching for him, who's been the recipients of these throws that he's throwing on the money. Guys that are struggling to make the roster. He's not throwing it to Devontae Adams. He's not throwing it to Jacoby Myers. So it's the fact that Anthony Brown, anything you want to say against him, who he's running with, or any of that, he's doing it with the worst as well. Not that a lot of these guys, when I say the worst, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but I'm saying in comparison to their peers.
Mm-hmm. And that's to be noted, and that's all he can do. And a lot of times, some people get hopped up on that, and you say, "Oh, he's only doing it versus the twos, versus the threes." He's doing it every opportunity he gets to touch the field. He's not getting many reps. We established that, or that got established because he's so far down on the depth chart, and you're having such an active competition between 1 and 2, or 1A and 1B. We'll call it.
Yep. And I just want to that for the people he's throwing to, I dug a little deeper last week sometime. So the guys on the Raiders roster for the receivers who are not the top three, not Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers, or Devontae Adams, all of them combined that are not the top three, the remaining like 5, 6, whoever's signed right now, the camp bodies and everybody, they have combined in the last 2 years combined, all of them together have totaled 18 catches and 180 yards. Those are the guys that he's throwing it to. All the guys who have posted that combined in the last 2 years together.
I'll take the 10 yards a catch average.
True, there is a positive in that.
I'm just saying. But somehow I didn't think that's where you were going with that. You can come up with a lot of things to try to knock this, and I'm not gonna knock it, because you don't have a set starter at the QB position, and if you intend to win, if you intend to make it to the playoffs, you're going to need to see what you got with everything, because at some point I believe that every single one of the quarterbacks on this roster is going to play or play meaningful snaps for the Raiders. Does that mean they're going to the playoffs? No. Does it mean that they're going to be complete bottom feeders and ass like everybody predicts them to be? No. But I just see it there. We had 3 quarterbacks play last year. Yep. We could pretend, and we've spoken briefly and touched on the glory of Carter Bradley, and the reality for him is that if he makes this team, it's probably going to be on the practice squad, unless something happens dramatic and something changes, and he just goes out there and suddenly looks like a capable quarterback. I can't even try to stretch it and say some extra shit, but just to go out there and be capable, manage the game, not turn the ball over, because at this point that looks like predominantly what the offense is going to be about, is managing the game and not turning the ball over and trying to offset the running game, because the running game is going to be the strength. Now, with all that being said, this QB competition has looked horrible, because your Raiders defense is looking at as a top 10 unit. And from what I continue to hear, and without the benefit of a joint practice or having seen the preseason game to really see just what level they are at exactly, they see the defense is world beaters. They are world beaters.
I mean, yeah, but this is not a knock on the defense when I say this. The defense, me and you talked about, before the defense, mid-season last year, they took a major step up, right? And before that happened, you and I hyped them up the world and back. We saw the potential the whole way through. So this is in no way to insult the defense, is what I'm going to say. But when your defense is outplaying your offense in training camp, there's no good way to slice that. That means the offense is struggling no matter how you slice it. And what happens when your offense is struggling? Look at the Raiders last year, who allowed the 9th least points defensively. They finished under 500. They finished under 500. And you could say, well, Josh McDaniels was here for part of the year. And it's true that their record did increase under Antonio Pierce. But then there were games where the defense, Vikings game, for example, played absolutely lights out. Didn't allow a single point into the last few minutes in the fourth because they were on the field all game. Your offense can't do anything. Doesn't matter. You're going to lose, as proof right there. So you need the offense to start doing things. And there's no... And as much as we want to use the excuse that, or not excuse, we want to reason and play devil's advocate with well, they still got to learn the system. If you are unable to do things in camp because your defense is beating the offense, you still can't learn the system because you're not doing successful things in it because the defense is winning. So it's halting progress as a whole. So there's really, every beat writer wants to spin this as a positive right now. Oh, the defense is awesome. Raider Nation is feeding into it because for the last 2 decades, the defense has been just atrocious. So everybody thinks it's a positive. It's not a positive. It is not a positive. It's good that the defense is playing good in a vacuum, right? Because the defense is playing good, but nothing good is coming from this. And last year is proof of that. Last year, what happened in training camp? Oh, defense is doing amazing. Defense is doing so great. Was the defense doing great? Probably. But when you go up against Jimmy Garoppolo, when you go up against Aiden O'Connell, I mean, you get better, and or you look better rather. And again, this is no slight to the Raiders defense, who you and I propped up all year before they took that big leap forward. But it's not helping the offense. The offense needs help. The defense doesn't need help. The offense needs the help, and they're not getting it because the defense is beating them. They don't know what's working. They cannot progress. It's not good. I don't care how you try to spin this. It is not good.
As a fan of the University of Michigan, I'm surprised that the old iron sharpens iron mantra seems to have eluded you. And when you're going up against an elite unit, you're getting better because the rest of the guys that you see are not going to be as good as the guys that you're facing. That helped them. It showed up in games like the Jets, where they won, and Miami, games where you thought they had no business being in there, but they were, because of what they had to go through in practice and dealing with their defense, they were able to outmuscle other teams and overcome their shortcomings because of the physicality. Obviously, when you have a quarterback situation such as this one, you're going to have to start imposing your will and doing some different types of things because you're not trusting these quarterbacks to go back and wing it 50 times a game. You're not trusting your quarterback to throw it 50 yards down the field 10 times a game. You're not. It's a bunch of things you're trying to, especially when you get this level 5 receiver core in the league. But
yeah, I would like to take something you said and spin it the other way around. You mentioned the Miami game, for example, and games of that magnitude where the Raiders were competitive, and you can argue that they should have won, and they had plenty of opportunities to win. There's a reason why they couldn't do it despite having all those opportunities. Why? Because the offense could not progress, because the offense was not great. And you don't have the offense. The name of the game is scoring in sports, basketball, baseball, doesn't matter. Obviously you have defense to prevent teams from scoring because the name of the game is scoring, but the name of the game is scoring. You can't score. This offense can't do anything. Defense isn't allowing them to, and I'm not saying that the defense should and can't be like, oh yeah, you guys just do this. I'm not going to guard you guys. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying because the defense has been this good, it's limiting what the offense can do, and that it's ultimately not the positive that people think it is or want to believe it is. And the Miami game does showcase that, in my opinion, because they had all the opportunities, couldn't do anything with it.
And so I'll take what you said and I'll spin it another time and take it a different way. So as you talk about the defense has been locked in and they've been better than the offense, let me ask you a question. So this defense that's been together for 3 years, that's been in the same system, that showed all the continuity and growth over the course of last season, done nothing but continue to add pieces to that defense, has the best defensive line depth that they've had in years. Now you take that and you're suddenly now trotting out an offense with a new offensive coordinator, You're missing the left side of your line. They haven't even put Pat stepped on the field yet. So now you're down to half the offensive line. And they were to be able to go out while you're in the midst of a QB battle with neither one of them displaying or reaching up and grabbing the bull by its horn, so to speak, are now suddenly walking out and dominating what was the number one defense over the last 10 weeks of the season last year. How much better is that?
Well, if that happens, that's fantastic. That would be fantastic. But as we're not there yet, and we're here, I have to go on what's happening right now and what hasn't happened. And by all indications, doesn't seem like it is. Not that that means it's impossible, but, you know, I mean, from the looks of it, for what we have now and what you just said, I mean, that's like skipping over an entire 5 steps to get somewhere new. So if we get there...
I don't think you understood. You're talking about, I'm not talking about skipping 5 steps. I'm talking about right now, today. As good as that defense was last year, at the end of last year, with the strides they've made over the offseason, which I've heard have been quite a few. I've talked to insiders. I've talked to some people I know who shall remain nameless, and what I've heard continuously is that there's not going to be no drop off. That was what you saw last year is what you're going to get and more. And so for me, knowing that, if you were to say that this new offense was suddenly, with missing half the line, was able to come out and dominate those guys, I guess if you think about it in terms of dominating them, that would be a good thing. But I would also wonder why that was, because we've seen what happens when the defense is slacking off a little bit so that we can let the offense execute. And then you get into the regular season, and then the offense shits the bed and can't score 20 points because the defense is no longer giving them opportunities.
Yeah. You're saying that... I might be misunderstanding what you're saying. Are you saying that if everybody comes back, the line and the quarterback play then takes a leap forward, then everything's good? And then is that what you're saying?
So I would feel, but we're at a hard point in training camp, and so far it's common knowledge that the defense always starts out faster than the offense does. Happens all 32 teams every single year, and with the exception of one team, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But so for conventional wisdom, that's conventional wisdom. But for all of the things that aren't going on, Raiders don't have the system that's been in place for the last 15 years. They don't have the MVP at quarterback. So they're trying to get everybody on the same page. They're missing the better half of their offensive line. Yeah. And I know that Jackson Powers Johnson has yet to take a suit up and take a snap for the Raiders. I'm aware of that, but I think that we can both say with some assurances that him and Colt Miller are going to make up the better half of this offensive line for years to come.
Yeah.
And so if they were on their backup, you've got half of a backup line, a new scheme, the quarterbacks who haven't established themselves as starters. If they're coming out and dominating the defense, then I have to ask what happened to the defense.
But okay, I understand more what you're saying, and I will respond to that by saying it's not that I expect the offense or that I think that the good would be the offense dominating the defense. It's that I expect, as you see with every team seemingly except for the Raiders, we see sprinkles of good, whether it's one play, whether it's 2 plays. We see something that is just, somebody did this and it looked great. And it might not, it could even be a one-off. It doesn't even have to be consistent. But that has not happened once with the Raiders offense, not once. And the 2 touchdowns that have been moderately memorable were sacks that they just let the play continue. And letting the play continue. I get it. It's Max Crosby versus the right side of the line, and that's a win every time. But it's also like it's a free play. Like there's no pressure. The sack already happened. They're just letting it continue, and that's how the best two plays by quarterbacks who aren't Anthony Brown, by the way, have been touchdowns, because they've been sacks that there's been no plays where it's like that you can look at one single play from Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew and be like, okay, this might be cool. Not one.
How do you figure? Have you watched them all?
I've watched enough.
Do you have tape on them?
How
are we quantifying every play in practice in a closed practice session?
How do I know? Because we would have seen it by now. Just we've seen one play from all other 31 clubs. That is how I know. We would have seen it by now. It would be talked about. Raiders beat writers love spinning everything into a positive, especially with this quarterback battle, which is why Anthony Brown is going so low key right now, because they don't want a controversy right there where it's more than it is right now. They would love. You don't think the Raiders would love to push out a great play to pipe up this offense right now to get hype going? Of course they would. It's the number one. They're probably upset that it's not happening right now. There's nothing they can do.
I will definitely say that you can see the supportive. How am I going to phrase this properly? I write articles, and it's amazing when I'm trying to find something to describe this and I can't do it off the top of my head. It is. I've heard. I'm not gonna. It's too. It's not begging. It's not screaming. It's not yelling. Is it frustration? No, but your head coach is urging someone to get there so that we can move forward, because until they establish who's going to be the guy, they can't move forward.
No, exactly.
And in the old days, it didn't used to be so bad, because your backup, you would split some reps with your backups. But in this new day and age, splitting reps with your backup is supposed to be a horrible thing, because you're scared he might take your job, and that leaves your team hamstrung because if something happens to the starter. Now you got a guy who's had no action going in there, and he looks like he's had no action.
No, absolutely. And especially when you look at the Raiders situation with the new playbook, the new offensive coordinator, new quarterback who just came here in Gardner Minshew, and Aiden O'Connell, this is only his second year as a pro. So yeah, those guys still need all the reps they can get. Absolutely. But these things that we're all tying together to get back to the Anthony Brown thing, this is why I think Anthony Brown really is going to get that shot, because Anthony Brown is overcoming this like it's nobody's business. And not only that, the fact that, as you mentioned, they are practically begging one of the guys to they're giving every opportunity for a guy to step up and take the job, QB1 job, which isn't going to be decided right now, no matter how good one plays, right? But they are giving every opportunity for a guy to step up and basically have the advantage to be QB1 heading into preseason and all that. And nobody's doing it. So that too is creating this pathway for Anthony Brown to be like, all right, you guys aren't doing it. Screw it. I'm here. I'll do it. Which he still has to do, to be fair. But I think that opportunity is going to be right there. And, all this Anthony Brown stuff isn't to say that he is going to be the quarterback one heading into week one. It's to say that I firmly believe he is going to insert himself into the battle. If he wins or not, a lot of things remain to be seen. And it's not to say that. It's just to say he is going to be a quiet competitor in this.
And I get it. That's definitely a fun little discussion to have, and it wouldn't be such a hot topic if you just, as we said, if you weren't struggling to find who was the guy. I mean, if he was brought in to be the 3, and because the other guys one guy took the job and the other one was a clear backup, then so be it. But with this much turmoil and uncertainty, I would I would personally like to see everybody get some work in early until you and maybe take the first two preseason games to work out your depth chart from there.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And it's funny because obviously right now Anthony Brown is the QB3, and people might be like, yeah, he's the QB3. What's the chances of him being more than that? This time last year, Aiden O'Connell was the QB3, and for all intents and purposes, it seemed like there was almost no path for him to start, unless injuries, which really is how he got his first start. But it wasn't until Antonio Pierce came along and said, all right, Jimmy and Hoyer, I'm not McDaniels, so there's no favor like that here. I think Aiden's the best guy, and that's ultimately how Aiden became the full-time starter. And there's no reason that can't happen again. Obviously, the coaching change isn't gonna happen, but there's no real favor like the Jimmy Garoppolo McDaniels thing that happened. They've been together for a year, Aiden O'Connell and Antonio Pierce, and that's not to say there's no loyalty there among them, but there's no strong connection where it's like, yeah, I can't see Antonio Pierce moving on from Aiden O'Connell. That doesn't exist.
I mean, that is the guy that got him the job. There's just that small little factor. I mean, we saw how ready and willing the Saints were to accept the former quarterback to go be with the guy that drafted him, right?
I mean, I would argue that Antonio Pierce is the reason why Aiden O'Connell is in this position more than the opposite.
I would agree to that as well. Well, I would agree to that as well. His faith and his backing of Aiden O'Connell is what's kept him here and what's kept that he got drafted. But and interestingly enough, most coaches go out and get their own guy, and he kept somebody else's. Now, what does this all mean? That remains to be seen. We'll see it throughout training camp, through preseason, through the regular season, and however the chips may fall after that. But this whole thing, I just want to, whoever it is, I just want the offense to be able to execute, to be on time, to do what it needs to do in order to score points, at least 24 a game. Probably going to need to be closer to 28 because the scoring has gone up because they play less defense now and throw more flags.
Yep. No, for sure. And there's too many weapons on this team to not be great, and to not be a serviceable offense at least. I mean, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, Dylan Labe. And I only bring up Labe because he is such a threat in the passing game, and he does all these things. He's got a lot of first-team reps in camp. And
that's a third down back, not first-team reps. So you got reps as a third down back.
Yeah, with the first team though, so it's all good.
Yeah, but that would insinuate that he's going to start.
No, he's not going to start for sure. I mean, he's not even a good pure runner. As the gadget guy, third down guy, yeah. But anyway, and you really can't even use the excuse that, well, Brock Bowers and Dylan Labe are rookies, so they need to get the hang of it, which obviously they can always improve. But they've been two camp standouts. I mean, they might be the two best offensive weapons during camp, so you can't even use that. And it's just amazing that none of these guys are able to even build some type of foundation, not even get there, but build some type of foundation that they might be on their way there. They haven't even done that, and it's crazy to me.
They got time, but they got a lot of time, and we'll be revisiting these conversations and these camp battles as we progress and get closer to September. It's only August 1st, but it's just something to keep an eye on and continue to monitor. And due to the earliness in the season, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. I would like to see a dynamic quarterback under center. That's what I want. What does that mean? Does that mean that it's Gardner? Does that mean that it's Aiden? Does that mean that it's Anthony Brown? I don't know what that means. I know that physically when you put all the tangibles, that would be Anthony Brown. Now, is he going to be able to read the defense and distribute the football on time and do what he needs to do? And he's shown he could do it at Oregon. That's what got him here into the league. And even with the Ravens, where he put in a little bit of work there as well. But can he do it continuously? Because the name of this game is consistency. That's the real honest question. And he's done it so far with every opportunity that he's been given, but he won't be able to get more opportunities until he earns it against another team. And one of the biggest deals, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that not having a joint practices was a mistake. There were cases to be made for it being a benefit as well, but I think that in terms of knowing what you have against other people, that's something that you should definitely be looking at.
Yeah, I think there's definitely clear positives and clear negatives, and I see both sides. And for me, because of that, I think in my mind it kind of nullifies. You take the good with the bad, you get what you get. You know.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel about that. But I do like what you said about how you want the most dynamic quarterback, and while it does seem like that would be Anthony Brown, it's just whoever becomes that, you know? There's no, your mind isn't set on anybody, and you're not advocating for any particular player as that player. You're advocating for a player who fills some mold and shows that they are of that mold. And I like what you said, that I agree with that. No matter who it is, if it can be Aiden O'Connell, cool. Just somebody who can be that guy.
That's all I want. I'm not asking for a whole lot.
Yeah, and
anyway.
I'm sure that Raiders probably feel the same way.
Yeah, I bet they do. I bet they do. There's a lot of folks worried about the QB situation, but we'll see how it plays out, works out. The system is supposed to be more suited to the players that they have. A lot easier to coach, and it's more time. And I'm curious to see what it'll look like next week when they take the field for the first time, and what the timing of it all looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that preseason, no matter what, I said this a little bit earlier, I don't think there is anything that any of the quarterbacks could have done right now to cement themselves for QB1 going into week 1. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think that no matter what, preseason was going to be a pretty important factor. And I'm looking forward to that too. And even though preseason is going to be against rotational players that most of the time aren't ones, and if it is ones, it's for a quarter or two, it gives you a chance to put it in action versus people who aren't the Raiders defense, you know, that you don't go up against, because iron sharpens iron, but there's negative downsides to that too, that you pick up tendencies because you know the offense or because you know the defense, but that's not necessarily how other offenses or defenses operate. That's just a tendency of the one that you face every day, and you come to rely on that, you know? So I think and that brings up a positive about joint practices that I think you were kind of getting at, in a way, that it's against a totally different team whose tendencies you don't know. And, you know, you really do get to see what you have because it's guys that you don't go up against every day. You don't know their tendencies. You don't know their offensive tendencies as a unit. And that's things you got to figure out on the fly. And I think that's going to be important and fun to see.
That and while we talk about the drills, the one-on-ones, you gotta work against different people, because you get to a point in training camp, and that's what everybody's been going against each other for weeks. You guys fighting because you're tired of looking at the same dude. But more importantly, you get to a point where you know the guy across from you so well that you're able to counter his moves to his counter moves to your counter move before he can do it. Because you've spent all day, every day for the past 3 weeks matching up with that one person or this other person or the collection of these guys. And yes, everybody in the league has a book on everybody that they're going to go with, the tapes that they watch, the film they break down to get a better understanding of both themselves and the people that they're playing. But when you're in practice going against a teammate, said you know each other so well that it almost kind of works as a negative
Yep.
because you're not seeing anything new. So that when you do see something new, now there's no adjustment process. There's no on the fly figuring out how to come change the game plan and come up with a strategy that's going to work. And usually that happens on a rush to rush basis or throughout the course of a game. But if you don't have that and you've been stuck with the same guy, you don't teach yourself how to do that.
No, exactly. And certain guys obviously are better at certain things, so they're more prone to do certain things. And then you get used to doing that. Somebody breaks out a whole new way they run routes, for example, and you're like, what the fuck? I've never seen that before, and then you're all fucked up. So it's very important to go up against different guys in drills too, for sure.
Oh, man. That was quite an interesting debate for 40 minutes of Anthony Brown and our quarterback situation. But news broke earlier today about a certain quarterback being hurt with plantar fasciitis and being required to be in a boot for 2 weeks. And I don't know anybody, let me say this again, I don't know anybody who's been required to be in a boot for 2 weeks that is going to leap up and be able to play football in a month.
Yeah, I mean, it was a non-contact injury, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and those are always the worst because there's nothing, there's not a force that caused it. Well, there is a force that caused it to happen, but there's no external force like somebody pushing into you or whatever and causing something to happen. It happens naturally, and those are always the hardest to recover, man. So I don't know.
Yeah, because Justin Herbert has the red jersey on. Nobody's hitting him. He's not doing all right, aside from maybe a weightlifting regimen or something that happened off the field. But again, plantar I don't know if you've had it. I have. That is a horrible thing to have because every step you take aggravates it. Every single one. Every time you put pressure on that foot. And yes, I understand that NFL training staffs and physicians are some of the best in the world, or at least the best at masking symptoms so that you can go out there and continue to play. But in a system like the one that they're going to be employing in Los Angeles with the Chargers, I knew that this was going to happen. I didn't feel like Herbert was going to be tough enough to play for Jim Harbaugh, to be honest with you. And I figured that and I'm not wishing nothing on nobody, but I figured that the way that Harbaugh deployed his quarterbacks in the past was going to get that man hurt. Only I had no idea it would be before he actually took a hit.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good thing that we shouldn't need to say. It feels like in today's day and age, we always need to just have some insurance down. It sucks that we don't like to see this, even with somebody who's a great quarterback and a division rival opponent. We still don't like to see this. Never wish for that stuff to happen.
No, you don't. And that's unfortunate for them, but it starts early over there. This is it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It starts early for them, and it lasts all year long. So this is probably the first of what will be many.
And for those wondering, what are the Chargers going to do without Justin Herbert? I know I asked you before the show because I was wondering. I didn't know their depth chart top of my head. Who's the backup, Phil?
Max Duggan from TCU.
Not great. It's not great. But
some development. Who knows?
I did put out a disclaimer too before the show that one thing about Max Duggan is TCU quarterback, as you noted, Quentin Johnston, who's been struggling to catch anything his way. He made Quentin Johnston work in college. I mean, they went to the national championship. They got absolutely blown out by Georgia, but yes.
They made it. They
They
got
made
there.
so, and I do wonder if that's even why Max Duggan is with the Chargers to begin with, because Quentin, first round pick by them, and they thought, worst case scenario, they can come along together. So, but yeah, Max Duggan.
Lad McConkey's been the truth from what I've heard as well. But we're not going to sit there and break down the Chargers because it's not time for that yet. But as we go through this whole process, these will be probably the first of many camp battle shows that we do. Because obviously it's way too early to have anything concrete. We got, what is it? First, we got 14 more days. 14 days of training camp, of pure training camp practices, not 14 calendar days.
Yeah, and what are we, 10 days out before the Raiders play their first preseason game too?
I don't think it's that far, but it's, yeah, you're right. Let's see, Thursday, August 1st. No, I think we might be a week.
Yeah. So yeah, all this to say, a number of things can happen. Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell can step up in the meantime and just completely claim their spot and no competition. But we're not talking about it weeks out from now. We're talking about right now, what we got right now.
At this moment.
Yep.
And it is what it is. I look forward to seeing what it is that we have. Hopefully we are pleasantly surprised instead of disappointed.
Yeah, like you said, we just want the guys who are going to be the most dynamic in their role, especially quarterback, and whoever it is whoever it is. It doesn't matter who it is, just whoever is going to do the job the best. And I think most of Raider Nation can agree with that.
Yes, for sure. Got anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No. It was a great show. Happy to be back. Happy to talk football with you again. I'm live. Happy to talk Raider updates, and man, thankful for all the viewers that we had in season 1 when we did this and got us back here. Thankful for all you guys, and that's all I want to say.
With that, we are out. So I'm Phil. He's Alex. This is the AP Cast. Please like, subscribe, tell a friend, send it to somebody. Help us continue to grow so we can reach more people. Thank you. God bless, and we are out.